Hey, Cici.
Hi, Brian.
It literally has been, well, not literally, it has been forever, or so it feels like,
It
that we've
really
talked.
does. It really does.
And not because you're in the UK and I'm in the States. We'll get into that because you're an expat and I want to hear all about that. But I don't know. Sometimes life just captures our attention, keeps us occupied, and before we know it, we've lost base with people. But fortunately, due to social media, we can still follow each other and know what's going on.
Mhm.
And somehow we circled back, and thank goodness we did because there's a lot of catching up to do. Starting with, you recently came back home,
Yes, I did. I went home for 2 weeks.
and I caught some of that on social media. But one thing I'm curious about, well, two things: what prompted it,
Mm.
and what did it ultimately mean for you?
Well, I think I'm still processing it, to be honest, because it was a lot. The real impetus for going was that I hadn't been home in quite a long time, like 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
Um, and I was really paralyzed to make any other moves to do anything else. Like I couldn't possibly book a flight even to somewhere else in the UK because if I was going to be in an airport again, it must be to go home. Like I just couldn't think of anything else and it was like I couldn't make any other plans. I was like very stuck.
So your nervous system was all in on the go home before anything else.
Yeah, it was like I had to do it. It was like, don't spend money on anything. You should be like putting that away to buy your ticket. It was like I couldn't justify doing anything else, which
And
is not right, but it's how I
and there,
felt.
well, right or wrong, it was the
Yeah.
fact. It was your reality.
Yep.
And was there wasn't anything going on back home
Nope.
that said, "Uh-oh, emergency, pull up the
No,
anchor, here we go."
I tell you what happened is like post divorce and everything like that. Obviously, it was a real financial struggle. And, within the last year or so, less than that, I've, been in a place where now it's not a struggle anymore, which is a new one for me in my
Oh
life,
yeah, your
pretty much.
business just went boom.
Yeah, I've just been hanging on for dear life. So
It's
I went to a
okay to set
yeah.
boundaries and delegate.
No, I'm working on that. It's better. It's better. I'm learning more all the time, but yeah, I went to a business retreat just here in the UK, like not far. It was a train deal, not an airport, so I was able to go. And then I was planning on doing a brand shoot with one of the photographers who had been there shooting the retreat. And I was going to fly to her. And I was sitting there at the kitchen table across from my partner. And it was just to Bristol in the UK, like an hour flight, not far from where I'm at in Newcastle. And I was just like, I can't do this. I can't believe that I'm going into an airport to get on another airplane and I'm not going home. And my partner was like, I'm tired of watching this really negatively impact your life. And it was like, it was either I went then or I waited until September because obviously during the summer, the flights triple, quadruple, and it's just like cost prohibitive no matter how much money you're making.
No,
And
good. They gouge us wherever they can.
yeah, it's crazy. So I was like, well, I either go now or wait until September. And then I was like, but can I deal with this cripplingness until September? Anyways, this is a very detailed answer to your question. But
Well,
uh
it's a journey, and it kind of goes, especially when you're neurodivergent as we are.
mhm.
You your brain kind of gets there in some interesting way, but it sure ain't a straight line.
No, and it kind of happened over a really long time and then all at once because that we sat at the kitchen table, had that conversation. I booked my tickets and I flew out literally a week later. So I gave myself like hardly any lead time. I just made the choice. I had the money. I was like, why am I afraid to spend the money? Like, that's really weird. If you have it and you want to do it, just go. So I did.
And did you send up a flare or did you just show up?
I let a couple of people know that I was coming, but
Remember
really,
me?
yeah, but only a few people because usually when I go home, I end up renting a car and driving around all over creation, which is fine. I do like it. But it had been so long since I've been home. I was like, I want to see my sister and I want to sit at my grandparents' porch. And like that's all I wanted to do. And that's what I did.
Sounds like you wanted to just be in the space.
Yeah. I wanted to just hang out with my people, dude, and just have the conversations that happen and just experience life the way they experience it. Like, what's your life like here in this new place? And because my grandparents used to live on the lake in Carolina, but they've moved back up to Virginia now outside of Richmond. So I hadn't seen their new house. I wanted to know about their new friends, their new church. Do they like their new pastor? Where's Papa volunteering? Like, I wanted to plug into their real life, you know?
So, what did you take away from that? Because you felt that compelling drive. I got to go home before I do anything else, and you did it.
Mm. Well, it was amazing to reconnect, um, to see my grandparents, especially the way that I connected with my papa was very different than like we had different conversations. I don't know. I feel like maybe he was prepared to have
Now, is this your
different conversations.
grandfather you're talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's my grandparents. Yeah. So, my mom's mom and dad. But yeah, he was like, telling me things about the way he worked so much. And that actually looking back, he wished that he'd spent more time with his daughters, especially because my mom died, about male friendships, about different stuff about what he did at work, how he feels about dynamics within the family. It was really interesting to like have that time with him and just be driving around in his truck or whatever, going to Food Line and just talking about life and what he thinks about stuff. I feel like I got to know him in a much different way. I feel like he sort of met me as an adult in a way maybe he hasn't done before. I'm not sure.
So,
But that
are
was
these
lovely.
topics you discussed with him before?
Sorry?
Were these topics you discussed with him before? Family dynamics and things he wished you'd have done differently?
Well, a little bit, but I don't know, maybe he feels like he doesn't get the opportunity to say this stuff, or maybe he just keeps himself to himself. Um, because I'm kind of that way as well. I'll tell you something if you ask me, but otherwise, I keep myself to myself for the most part. And I think my Mima has a lot of opinions and she doesn't need to be asked.
Yeah, my
So,
mom was like that too. Had an
so
opinion or a judgment for everyone, no matter whether she knew him or not. That
yeah,
was my mom. Yeah.
yeah, so Mima is pretty similar to that. I mean, I love her to death. I'm not saying anything bad about her. She knows how she is. I would never say anything about anyone behind their back that I wouldn't say directly to their
Well,
face.
and the reality is, people become who they are for reasons. It comes from their
Hmm.
history. A lot of it may be outside their awareness.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard in some cases, but I like to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Hmm.
One thing that bugs me more and more is the idea of the first impression. You need to make a good first impression. Most people are going to be acting when they do that. They're putting up a performance. So if you want to see the true them, let them be real. Maybe they're having a
Hmm.
crappy day or they're stuck on something, and give them the benefit of the doubt that this is the place they are now. This doesn't mean it's representative of their entire character. Be patient with them.
God, that's so true. The benefit of the doubt. I mean, I have like implemented that so consciously in my life over the last, I don't know, maybe year or two, just like really give people the benefit of the doubt. If somebody does something wrong or, anything at all. I mean, to be fair, it's probably something that I've been aware of for a really long time because I remember like when I was a kid and my mom was sick and everything, she had motor neuron disease, you call it ALS over there, that I would like maybe I think one time I cut somebody off in traffic and they like hung out the car and was like screaming at me and stuff. But I had just left seeing my mom and she had just gone into hospice and she was going to die in a couple of weeks and I was 19. You know what I mean? I just made a mistake and that was like it made me feel awful. I was like shaken and like I just felt so bad because I was like, oh my God, did I just like cause a wreck and this person's so upset and then I'm so upset and everything else going on. I just like I didn't need that as well. So I try to give people some space. Like if they act the fool, like maybe because they're thinking about something else. It's not all about me, but
Yeah,
being
you
really
just got there.
conscious. Yeah.
Their mood could have been going all day, or it could be like this on a regular basis, but you just got there. You don't know what's up with this.
It's got nothing to do with me anyways,
And
like
when you see somebody react like that, was that thought through? They thought, you
yeah.
know what? If somebody cuts me off, I've been working on those triceps. I'm leaning out this window and I'm going for it. I don't think somebody plans their day like that.
No, obviously something was going on with them, but
So,
me in my little tiny brain in my experience couldn't see their side either. Not then.
and as we grow and mature and reflect and get to know ourselves and our own reactions, we come to discover I could be like that during my worst moment. Send them a
Yeah,
blessing, send them on their way. But there's
exactly.
no reason for you to carry that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had to practice that a lot while I was home because
Oh, okay. Now we're
yeah.
getting into boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there were people that historically have been difficult to be with, and yet they're
Yeah.
still family. So you kind of
Hmm.
want to touch base. And how do you set that boundary to determine what gets in?
Well, yeah. And sometimes it's just like if you're in a space for a certain amount of time, it doesn't matter. It's gonna get in at, like a little bit. you
Yeah, I
know.
mean, I hear about these legendary Zen masters that nothing can shake them. I'm not one of those.
Mm-mm.
I mean, like you
No.
said, after a while, it's going to get on you, and then
Yeah.
but let's talk about that first. How what are the certain things? No names, of course. What are the things that kind of broke through and got on you a little bit?
The the stuff about my appearance, comments about my facial piercings or my tattoos, um, got to me in a way. I think just because I had forgotten what the Bible Belt was like. It, and I was back into it and I wasn't anticipating that. I was
Oh,
anticipating being talked to about Jesus and y'all can't take my guns, you know, but I wasn't anticipating like the weird comments about like appearance and stuff. I just think that's so strange
and
and
were
rude.
they all nitpicking about that?
I mean, the people that I saw in my family of a certain age. Yeah. I mean, my grandparents don't give me a hard time about how I look, but I know how they feel. They don't like it.
Yeah,
But they
and
don't say anything, which is fine.
in certain parts of the country, there are a greater number of shoulds. Is that a diplomatic way of saying it?
yes.
And the shoulds even come down to the most minor things that are really of no consequence whatsoever. And yet they feel like they are mandated to take a position.
Mm,
I'm
yeah.
anti nose ring, and I'm surprised you didn't know that. I feel disrespected personally.
I think they talked about it in the Bible.
Oh, they went to church. Oh, minister promised me a good sermon on. Well, strap in and bring a pad and pen because guy next to me is taking notes. He knows how to write.
It's honestly like that's not far from the truth. And I just forgot. And then it made me sad because it seems quite small.
Having to adjust to the UK, and how long have you lived there now?
8 years nearly.
And do you get any kind of crap for body piercings and the tattoos?
No, not for that. I give credit for other things. But not for that.
We all pretty much get crap for something.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some people who don't really like it, but also I'm in like the north of England, which is like people are mad chill and like super friendly. But if you go down south where like all the money is and all the posh people are, then maybe people in certain areas would be, but it's I think it's a generational thing.
It's a generational, it's a status thing. When you
Mm-hmm.
are in a certain status, this is how we dress. This is
Mm-hmm.
how we talk. These are the places we travel to.
Right.
And then there's the folks like you and me where we're just enjoying the moments we have. We're not competing with other people. Because if you do that, then you end up fashioning a persona that's all about impressing others. It's nothing to do about meeting your own needs or being happy. No thanks.
Yeah. And life is hard enough.
Yeah.
I don't need to put any additional pressure on myself. I'm all set. Like that's how I feel about
Oh,
it. And
how
so
did
it
you?
makes me sad
It makes you sad for yourself, for them, for
for
the
them.
world. Yeah.
Maybe for the world, mostly for them, because especially if it's like coming from somebody that I care about, it's like, I really want more for you than that. Like you're actually like, I believe that you're capable of more than that, and you can see like bigger than that. It's like, don't be so worried about what other people think about you, because I know from my own experience how much that will hold you back. And life's short.
And there are certain cultures where the fear of judgment is what keeps you in line.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want the community looking down on me. What will the neighbors think? What will the folks, all the people in church turning around looking at you because you did something wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Shame based compliance worked for
Mm-hmm.
centuries. But like you
Yeah.
said, you want more for them, if nothing else, the awareness of the worldview they've chosen.
Yeah, sure.
I've chose to look at world through this lens, and that gives me permission to judge all the minutia of
Hmm.
people instead of just seeing through all that and seeing the person.
Yeah, but I think that was a bit of it as well. It was like we haven't seen each other in a really long time. Like with a lot of a lot of these people, I hadn't seen them in a really long time, and that's what you want to talk about. You want to talk about my tattoos, my septum piercing, and um, who you voting for. That's what you want to have a discussion about. Like, what about your actual life? I want to know about your actual life and your friends and your family and what you do. And like, I want to tell you about my stuff. I've built a whole life for myself in another country. Don't you care? No.
Wow, that was an awakening, I imagine.
I know. So it feels really weird talking about it because I feel like I'm talking shit, but I'm not. It's just like my observation.
Well, you're not saying that there's anything wrong with them or bad about
No.
them. What you really are just pointing out is that there's more of a culture clash than there might have been before because you've adapted to this more accepting and open-minded environment and
Mhm.
it's easier for you to walk around in your own skin.
Yeah, I
And then you
thrive
go back
here.
home, the people you grew up with that you look to for role models and wisdom, and now they're saying, tell me about that thing in your nose.
I know. And I
Yeah,
don't even think about it. Like, I
yeah,
don't even think about it. And I present myself in a certain way. Like, I wear weird clothes. I like what I like. If it's gaudy and ugly, it's probably my style. That's what I like. And I like accepted that about myself. So I brought
comfortable.
all my Newcastle clothes and was wearing them around, not even thinking about it. Meanwhile, meanwhile, be
I'm
like, you're
surprised
wearing
someone
that.
didn't call 911.
I know.
There's a strange girl walking through town. Maybe she's a witch. I don't know.
Well, it wouldn't be half wrong. So But it was like, but I didn't even think about it. And I guess that was like, so it was really great. It made me feel kind of proud of myself. Like, actually, you've come a really long way. Like, this is where you've come from. And you got to the point where it didn't even occur to you to worry about what other people would say. It didn't even cross your mind that you would get any sort of negative feedback. So good job, Cici. Other side of that is I wasn't prepared for the negative feedback. So it made it a little tough to take because it was a surprise.
So did you leave there to go back to England feeling like you filled your cup somewhat? Or was that well, I'm not quite sure what I went home for, somewhere in between?
Yeah, I think honestly, 100% both. Like I'm so glad I went back. I'm so glad I got to have like the conversations that I had with my grandparents. We got to go through old photos together. Papa told me stories about racing 57 Chevrolets when he was a kid and Pocosin and like running from the cops and all this stuff. Like you know what I mean? I heard some amazing stories. We had some great conversations, and I know it meant so much to them as well, like to spend that real close time with them. Like I'm not gonna try not to cry, but like when I walked in the house, like when I first like arrived, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever. Papa had been asleep and he woke up and he's all bleary eyed and he gives me a hug and he says, I didn't think I'd ever see you again.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, shit, because it had been that long of a time and they're that age, and that was like a real concern for them. So, that contributed to the pressure as well of me wanting to go initially, anyways. So I'm so glad that I went. But it really just affirmed for me that like I have my life has been really difficult from the very beginning, and I have like clawed and scraped to get this life that I really, really love. You know what I mean? Like I have a support system here and like beautiful people who really care about me and know me for who I am as and they only know me as sober here. I've never been in active addiction in this country. That's a big deal. Like everybody knows me as who I am, like my evolved, embodied self. And I have found those people and made this life. And I was really, really happy to go back to it.
Unfortunately, it sounds like if you were to go back home, there'd be a whole lot of passive aggressiveness and gaslighting and getting in your head just by design. That's kind of what they're taught. Not that these people are deliberately
Mm.
coercive. It's just kind of how they learn to do things. And then you immerse yourself in these values that allow you to be you and not have to always fear about what others are thinking.
Mm.
And then you go home where that isn't. It's a real testament to how you've come to embrace a different set of values that allows you to be much more who you are. And it's a great, like you said, it's a great reminder of how far you've come.
Yeah, I think it shows that there's so much virtue in changing your mind. I feel that people get really tied to whatever they were taught, or we talk about limiting beliefs, or like, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, programming. Different people call it different things, but whatever you think of it.
Conditioning.
Yeah, like but you there's more than that. Like it's much bigger than that, and you don't have to, just because you learned something a certain way, if you're presented with new information, it's a virtue to be able to look at new information and filter it through your own personal filtering system, and then reserve the right to change your mind.
The word
It's
is
okay.
curiosity.
It doesn't
So
mean that you were super wrong before, and it doesn't mean that it's a moral failing, and it doesn't mean anything except for that you learn new information and you change your mind.
yeah, there is too much emphasis in this country, in this culture of being right. I'm right, you're wrong. Okay,
Yeah.
let's both be curious and teachable. How about that? so we can explore this together and ask each other questions and still say, I learned something new. Let's keep asking questions. That's one of the reasons why science can keep updating its knowledge, is because it's interested in having the most accurate, best tested data. So when people see science changing its mind a lot, they might say, oh, they don't have confidence. They don't know what they're doing. No, we know exactly what they're doing. That's why they keep updating it. As
Learning more
opposed
and
to
getting
someone
smarter.
at work who you can have this argument with back and forth, and someone's clearly not listening because they're more interested in being right. So they're not going to take your information and they're not going to consider it. They're just going to be stubborn. Totally impractical priorities.
I know. And I've got no interest in those people. I've got no time for them. But I love someone who's challenging. I love somebody, when people say about them like, oh, she's a real pain in the ass, or they're really difficult, or they're hard work. Those are the people that I really like because they're challenging and they're like, I don't like, not always, obviously, but typically I tend to like those people because they're free thinkers.
Well, the person who tells me, oh, they're really difficult, they're a piece of work. My question is, what do you think they should be doing?
Mm,
Because you can look at one person and say, oh, I don't like them, they're too unpredictable and they make me uncomfortable. And the other person, they're so spontaneous, they're exciting, they got so much energy. Same person,
mm,
totally different lens. So
yeah, and
again,
that
we're
goes
back
back
to
to
the
the
benefit of
benefit
the
of the
doubt,
doubt.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, same brain.
All these
And
miles away, and it's like we're connected.
we're so deeply connected. But yeah, it goes back to that, and it goes back to needing to have an opinion on everything too. I know enough to know, like I'm smart enough to know that I'm dumb as hell. There's so many people who know so much more than I do. And I learn new stuff all the time. Like I don't have opinions on lots of stuff because I just
A
don't
lot
know
of
enough.
things don't require opinions.
Nope.
Like, is anything going to be influenced by whether I have an opinion about the Kardashians?
Nope.
The
Yeah, if
less,
you don't like their stuff, don't buy it. I don't know. Like that's it.
when we really get down to it, the stuff we are most responsible for is how we show up. You need to be aware of your values and your traumas, your beliefs, because that influences what ultimately comes out of you. And if there's stuff happening, like these reactions when someone maybe says, hey, you might want to, straighten your collar, and you blow up at them, there might be something to look at there.
Yeah.
Because if that makes you show up in a way that you did not want to, you better figure that out. At least that's my policy. Because I
Yeah.
want to be much more deliberate and present, as opposed to, I've got to make sure I act this way and smile on cue and keep this much eye contact or they're not going to like me.
Mm.
No way. I'm going to be present and focus on them and try and understand the flow of energy between us and try and connect wherever I can and create a moment together.
Yeah. I want to understand. Like I want to know what makes you tick and like what's your experience and what's your like weird, weird stuff that just comes out after you spend a few days with somebody and you're like randomly in the car and then they say some weird shit and you're like, what? You've never said that before. Like I want to I want to know like that's what I care about. I don't care about like the minutia of stuff and what people think and the way you present yourself. Like I want to know why you present yourself that way, no
Oh,
matter
you
what
and
it
I are so
is.
much alike in that regard.
Mm.
Is I want to hear the story of how a person got here.
Yeah.
Why did you decide that? Why do you value this as opposed to this thing? And I'm
Mm.
fascinated by the decision making process and the way people see the world. And certain beliefs, and I'm fascinated by the ideas of philosophies and religions and stuff. Because when you step back from it, you realize I I don't know that any of it's true. This is just what I'm going with.
Mm-hmm.
Deciding to believe in a God or not, deciding whether to pray or to meditate. People have reasons, they have a story behind all of it. However, how many people actually reflect upon that decision?
Mm-hmm.
But some of them are thrilled about being included. They're so happy to be seen that even if it doesn't necessarily meet their needs or be in alignment with who they are, at least they're included.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find those people, years down the line where they feel unfulfilled. But I've got all these friends and I've got a good job. Yeah, but how much of that was for you?
Yeah, you've sought acceptance as a person that doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
That's no
And then
fun.
there's a whole lot of work to do on unpacking all that stuff.
Yeah, so a lot of people just don't, I think, because it's
Yeah,
much easier
they play
not
it
to.
safe. They numb themselves with a substance or a distraction, binge watching, whatever, to keep their head busy with something other than their thoughts. But we can solve that problem on another conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure we could. We
Absolutely.
could run the world, me and you.
Well, I don't know what to run it, but at least call bullshit.
Yeah. Oh, I would like that. We could be the ones like standing in the corner and be like, I don't think that's right.
Wouldn't it be great if there was like a nightly newscast where that's all they talked about?
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Tonight we're calling bullshit. And you isolate. There'd be a lot of fact checking, obviously. This
Yeah.
person said that. We did the research. So we're calling.
I kind of love that.
That'd be the closest to an honest news broadcast that we have today, I think.
Yeah. But then you'd have to get sponsors and stuff. It would all fall apart
Oh, you
anyways.
don't think people would pay per view to see that?
I suppose that's true.
Subscription plus, you throw in a lot of good humor in there, and it works out.
Yeah. It's the Riz.
Well, look, homegirl, I know we have a big time differential, and I'm so thrilled that we had a chance to catch up. We need to do it more.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of kicking myself after this conversation, wondering why it's been so long.
I know, me too, because I always love talking to you. I love hearing everything you have to say. We do the accents back and forth. Like it's so
That is
much
so
fun.
That's because we're playing. It's just play. It's not. Some people might hear it and say, "Oh, discrimination." No, it's appreciation.
Mm,
I tune in. I got so many different voices that I do that I'm so auditory. I'm fascinated by accents
mhm.
and the way people say things and pronounce things. It's like music.
Yeah, it's a
Some
sign of high empathy also to like accents and pick up on them and stuff.
Well,
Like,
you just taught me something new.
yeah.
So someone says, "You're making fun of me." No, I care. I care
Yeah.
so much.
It literally is a sign of empathy, like the people who adopt accents and stuff. Because I have
Oh,
people who do that around me and they'll start talking American and they're like,
I
I'm so
would
sorry. And
get
I'm like, it's okay.
I would get in so much trouble as a kid because I would start mimicking whoever I was talking to, and I wouldn't know I
Mhm.
was doing it.
Mhm.
Jace, tell me more about this. This sounds so fascinating to me. Oh my goodness, let me tell you about the time. I would get into so much trouble. You're making fun of them. What was I doing?
I know. Meanwhile, you're a kid and you just like have no concept of racism or anything at all. And you're like, I just thought the way they talked is cool. What do you mean?
I'm gonna try to explain racism. I'm like, why would somebody do that?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
Anyways, can I go play?
exactly. Anyway, Mr. Rogers is doing this cool thing with a puppet. Is it okay if bug out?
Yeah, I think they're going back to the castle today.
It's castle, always the princess or a prince. It's
Yeah,
whatever's your deal.
whichever.
Doesn't matter.
Gender non-conforming royal.
Yeah, I bet you there was never been those in the history of the monarchy.
No, maybe there will be. That'd be cool.
Anyway, sunshine, always an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to talk to you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
An exquisite pleasure. Take care of yourself and your UK brethren.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Take care, Steve.